I think about this concept of a grappling hook. I've had this kind of grappling hook mentality. And what I mean by that is like if you see somebody use a grappling hook, right? If you're a fan of Batman or whatever, right? You shoot it off and it grabs onto something and it like hooks onto something. And then once it's locked in, it pulls you up. The way I've always thought about it is having that clarity and having that vision about your destination and where you want to go. That's the grappling hook locking on. You shot the grappling hook, locks on. Now, it might be some branches on the way. It might be some birds flying by. It might be some flags floating around, right? It might be some things along the way. You might, bump yourself along the way. But if you hold on to that grapple, it's just going to keep going.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rodney Veal, and I'm the host of Rodney Veal's Inspired By. And today on the podcast, we have someone that I just met recently, but I'm dying to get to know his backstory and how he became who he has become in my presence. I want to say that Laurent Che is probably a multi-hyphenate, and we're going to find that out, but he did such a spectacular job of introducing Cincinnati through spoken word and visual imagery to the Americans for the Arts Conference that I had to have him on. So without further ado, the multi-hyphenate Laurent Che. Welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate it, Ronnie. I'm so glad to be here, man.
Oh, it's super cool. So yeah, so for as I was saying earlier, it was like one of those moments where I was like, who is this guy? I mean, I was at the conference and that morning of the opening session, and it was, you knocked it out of the park. And I had this I had dinner that evening with Donna Collins from the Ohio Arts Council, and before I could even sit down at the table, she said, you need to have Lauren on your podcast. I was like, okay. I was like, great minds think alike. And that's it. So
I mean, clearly we're wearing the same shirt. I know they can't, see it for those that are listening, but
oh yeah. But like the fact that we're like twinning out, which is pretty cool. So I'm curious, like, so Lauren, no one steps into the role of being a spoken word artist. How did this? We have an origin story. Give me the origin story. How did this all begin? Because I'm really curious.
So you and I actually have something in common because I did my homework on you as well too. So
there we go.
Poetry, dance was pretty much what got me into the arts. So I
really
started dancing when I was 4. Started a hip hop dance crew in high school here in Cincinnati, and then started up a dance crew at college as well. And so I was choreographing and dancing for way before I ever kind of picked up a pen to start writing, or at least a little bit before. And I kind of wrote my first poem when I was about 9. But that was my introduction into the space, was dance. My mom put Michael Jackson on the screen and he was moonwalking, and I was like, I gotta be a part of that.
Is that how that works? That is truly how that works. Yeah,
how it works. Yeah. And then I want to say in 4th grade, I was the only or one of maybe 1 or 2 Black students in my class. I went to a school here, a Montessori school, and we had to embody a historical figure for a class presentation. And being, if not the only Black student there, my mom is like, hey, well, maybe you can do Langston Hughes, right? And I'm like, who is that guy, right? I actually have a picture of Langston hanging behind me because he was my first introduction into poetry, right? Seeing a poet like me take on that art form. So that was my first time, so she gave me this like corn pipe and got me suspenders and, the whole fit, drew a mustache because there was no facial hair happening at that time, obviously. And that was kind of my first introduction into poetry and what that meant.
Wow. So what was the audience response? Because I mean, you're bringing in Langston Hughes, so you kind of went deep on African American culture for those who in the room may not have been that deep into it.
Oh, I mean, I want to say no one knew who I was. I'm sure they were like, oh, okay, he's an old guy from hundreds of years ago. That's probably what they were thinking, right? 100 years ago, right? But I don't think anyone had a deep understanding because I was even learning about who he was, right?
Right.
But yeah, that was I don't know if I got much of a response. It was a long time ago. Yeah, it was good practice for me. I'll say that.
Well, it definitely launched you into it. I mean, the thing is, I love the fact that you like you had this dance background. I mean, so I mean, and you carried it through college. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like was that so that became was there a space as I my background in dance, thinking
Mhm,
about high school. Well,
mhm.
so there was like you're still doing it in high school, you're doing this thing, but you did you ever see it as being like maybe I could turn this dance thing into a career? Or was that whole thing of like, well, that's nice, but you probably should go get a backup degree. I was thinking because I was looking at you, I was looking at your bio, and I was thinking, yeah, this sounds very familiar.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it was just such a part of, when I still dance when I have the time, I was doing, workshops here in the city, just years
Yeah,
ago. That was such a part of my identity. And poetry was kind of, like I said, it came in about 5 years later after I discovered dance. So it was like this constant tug of war between the two.
yeah, wow.
Of course, dance was the more prevalent life. You asked anyone from age 9 up until 17, it was strictly dance. Oh, what is dance? Right? That's
They would have said that that's the path he's going down.
pretty much that's who he's going to be. And then even a little bit after that, just because, like I said, in college, I was captain of this dance crew and performing all around campus. But in between that, I would be performing poetry on campus. I went to Kent State University, and that was like where I was able to kind of find my voice as a dancer, but also as a performance artist as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
So I mean, for those who don't know, Kent State, I've been to the campus at Kent
yeah,
State, and that's a journey. I'm not gonna lie. It's
yeah,
not like Cincinnati. It's not like Dayton. It's like,
yeah,
okay, well, that was a little bit of a
yeah.
okay. You're kind of in. There's not much out there. I'm
Hmm.
gonna say
Hmm.
it out loud. So I
Yeah,
mean, so this burnishing of the spoken word and this and dance and kind of developing it and your style of poetry and your delivery, do you think that I mean because I do you think that the dancing helped craft this ability to embody the words because you embodied what you were saying, it was
yeah,
so vibrant and I was like, oh, I'm like that's why I said multi-hyphenate. I was like, I know this guy's a multi-hyphenate without even doing the research.
yeah. You're so perceptive there, for sure. I started choreographing when I was 16.
Yeah.
And and at the time that I was started choreography, especially in the hip hop genre, it was becoming the trend or the style to not just dance to the beat and the cadence of the music as you would see in like the You Got Served era as much. It was all about the beat. In this era, like from the early 2009 to like 2014, the style of dance in the hip hop choreography community was about lyric interpretation. So
Really? Oh.
absolutely. So if you're a choreographer who's worth his salt, and you're not figuring out ways to embody that lyric that the artist just said in the song, in addition to capturing the beat at
And
the
the
same,
rhythm, yeah, at the same time.
what are you doing? You know what I mean? So that was kind of like this thing. So as a spoken word artist and a choreographer, I was spending more of my hours dancing at the time, right? So it was hard for when I'm, working on my style of delivery as a poet to not embody that to where now it literally
Oh.
poetry in motion to where the same way I'm choreographing a song in the studio with my guys, now when I'm, taking these lyrics that I've written that are coming from my heart, now there's an even deeper connection for me on how I can bring them to life. So now when I'm writing them, I'm even thinking like, how would I convey that visually? How can I paint a vivid picture to further impart the message that I'm trying to get to the audience?
Well, and that's really interesting because because I always think about because a lot of people, especially in talking about rap and talking about hip hop,
Uh-huh.
it is the language. It's not just the rhythm. You
Uh,
have to listen to the language. It's storytelling. And I tell people all the time, do not. I'm like, you can't box it in like this categorization of something. It's
uh,
bigger than what you're categorizing it as. And
yes.
so, you saying that, I'm hoping some people in the audience recognize that, yes, because you're hearing some of these, these lyrics that are to me, it's basically poem to a beat.
Yeah. That's what
And
it
so it's like this motion. So So I'm kind of curious as like where, I mean, because a lot of people like I said, Kent State. It's in the middle, not to say it's in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah,
but it is definitely not
yeah,
near an urban center.
yeah.
So was there an audience for you starting to do the
Absolutely.
spoken word?
So, and I feel like some of my friends that I went to Kent State with feel the same way. But like I felt like in certain spaces that I was at a HBCU. I'll be frank with you, Rodney, right? And I'll say it like this, right? When I want to say my first year experience program that they do, like your freshman year, they do the whole thing. Look to your left, look to your right. I went to a special program called Academic Stars that was specifically for minority students. And the first thing they said to you before, they're getting you to send you out into the world with the rest of the campus at large, right? Being a PWI on paper, they're like, look to your left, look to your right. You might not see this person around as much. Like you guys are going to be doing different things. When I tell you that our community was so concentrated, I really mainly only connected with my white friends in class, right? Like that was pretty much where I saw them. Everywhere else, like I'll give you an example. I was leaving. I did marketing at Kent State, and I became really good friends with a friend of mine, white student that went there. And we're walking from class, maybe going to grab something to eat. From our class to the hub, the student center where we were going to grab food, I probably dapped up 5 guys, maybe gave a hug to like a few, friends of mine, who were girls, dapped up another guy, cracked the inside joke with another, all black the whole way through it. And her words to me were, everybody. And I was like, no, I just know
you know your people, right?
you know what I mean? And that's literally, so when she's not with me, just imagine, right? Like it just feels like that all the time to where
Wow.
this curate, and then the staff, there were black professors, right? My advisor was black, right? So like, and we still have a relationship to this day. She supports my spoken word career, right? So like my experience there was so black, but at the same time, I got the exposure to the white community to have practice being around both. But that was my experience in my audience. I mean, when we had an event where I was performing, I would see the lines, right? I would see people coming out like, hey, I heard you performing tonight. That's why I came, right? So like the audience was there. And then it was almost like the white folks on campus would discover it and be like, oh, I didn't know this was happening because our audience was so large.
Wow, that's so super cool. So you got this validation, the support of like, this is the thing. I'm kind of curious, why did you choose marketing? I know why I chose political science, but
Yeah.
why marketing?
So professionally by day, right? So I've been in the advertising industry for 10 years, right? I graduated in 2015 with a degree in marketing from Kent State. And then I went to get my master's at Boston University in advertising with a focus in copywriting. So clearly, obviously, poetry, advertising, right? The writing element is the same, right? You're conveying a message to an audience. I fell in love with advertising when I was a kid. Me and my mom would watch commercials. She's been with Allstate for years. She's an attorney. And anytime an Allstate commercial will come on, I'm rewriting the commercial. Right?
You did as a child?
They should have said this. They should have done that. And then on top of that, she introduced me to Eddie Murphy's Boomerang, 1992, when I was in high school.
Oh my God.
Right? Or maybe I
There
was
is.
high, and I was like, wait, so you're telling me there's a black man in a nice suit, clean cut, right? Like, okay, I like that. I'm vibing with that. And he's in a creative corporate space, right? Because I had a business mentality about him. My father is in business, right? So like, I would see him go into work in a suit, right? So like I had that appreciation. But at the same time, I'm an artist myself. So I'm like, wait, you're telling me he's in a corporate setting, Halle Berry's there, and she's an artist, and he's giving her creative direction, and it's for a perfume commercial, and then they make this video based off of his ideas. I gotta do that, and that is kind of what started my trajectory. And then while I was doing spoken word on the side while getting my degree, I was kind of like developing this style that is infused into my work as a senior copywriter, creative director, and content producer.
That is such an interesting way to kind of support the creative process of being a spoken word, because that's not, I was speaking to, the reason why I say that is because I was talking to Sierra Leone, who
Mhm.
is I'm sure
Yeah,
and see that she
absolutely.
the talk about somebody whose experiences of being
Oh
in
my
this
gosh,
bigger
she
world
makes
realm.
amazing spaces for artists like myself, especially here in the Midwest. So she's incredible.
Yeah, she's absolutely, and her journey is like this, and it's a, so it's they almost everyone I've talked to in the kind of the realm of writing and spoken word, it's not the actual thing, it's all the other things that came into your life
Hmm.
that open up the door to the words,
Yeah,
to the language, to the stories. Because you told a story, like you painted when you made me want to move to
yeah,
Cincinnati. I mean, okay, I was like, well, I could move. I'm like, come on, let me get back up the house.
I won't. I won't tell Dayton. Don't worry. I won't.
Don't tell Dave because they'll get upset.
No, they don't
But
have.
so I mean, this so you've done all this cool stuff at Kent State. Now you're back in Cincinnati. Was it what your goal was to come back to Cincy? Did you work in Cincy once you graduated from Kent State?
So I graduated, like I said, in 2015. I came back home, was trying to land my first role in the copywriting industry, right? Wasn't having much luck, but also too, I realized I had done the wrong major for the type of career I wanted to do, right? In my mind,
Uh-huh.
oh, marketing, that's the creative side of business. No, I'm taking stats, I'm taking microeconomics. It was helpful, but like I felt like I was in business, right? So like, and that's not who I am. Although I have a business mentality, that's not who I was. So it became like the dynamic of I'm performing, I'm dancing, I'm doing spoken word, and like I'm just trying to keep my grades up so my parents don't have anything to say about everything I'm doing out here. Like that became my experience, right? And I remember every time I would get on stage, to perform poetry, I'm thinking like, man, I wish there was a career I could do where I could basically like create, but like, make a good living from it and build a career, but like still, craft these messages that would have a compelling impact on people's lives the way I do on stage. In my last year at Kent, I took an advertising elective. So mind you, I've already seen Eddie Murphy. I've already been watching the commercial. I have it. So now I'm forming the idea, right? I have this the book I recently just wrote. I talk about how it addresses how people have a hard time finding their calling. And I'm a big believer that our childhood leaves breadcrumbs for our calling, right?
Ooh,
And
wow, that's a good image.
me, that was my experience of just kind of tracing when it got to the stage of like moving into manhood of like, well, what do I want to do? I literally backtracked to when I was a kid of writing, when we had to do handwriting assignments in elementary class. I didn't just write, about going to the store to get milk. I'm writing about a samurai with the magical sword, right? Like everything is always,
The elevated, and it went beyond just the assignment.
oh yeah, like if I liked the girl, I had to write her a poem, right? Like that was I had to pass her a poem that told her everything about her that I appreciated, right? Like going back to that, and then again, like I said, watching commercials, breaking down the commercials, music videos, right? I told you I had an appreciation for Michael Jackson. Every artist, especially as a dancer, I'm watching the music videos. Like
Mhm.
YouTube is filled. I'm like, how can you listen to a song? I remember when I first met my wife, I'm like, wait, so you don't go and watch the music videos immediately? She's like, oh, I've never even seen them. I was like, what? How do you do that? All this is coming together. And when I took that advertising class my senior year as an elective, I was like, that's it. That's it. So I was like, I got to go get my master's because I don't have a portfolio, right? I've been doing all this time doing microeconomics and stats. So I created pretty much a sample portfolio of things that I had never actually done, but what I would do if I were a copywriter, and submitted that. And I got into Boston University. So I went out to Boston, went out there for 18 months, got my master's at Boston University, and graduated in 2018. And then got my first job at Foot Locker as a copywriter.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not what you still do now. You're not.
I'm
Are
still
you?
a copywriter. Yeah, I'm a senior copywriter. Yeah. 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 I've been in the tech space for the last 2 years.
Okay, so you pursued this career. So I'm kind of curious about you're back. You done your masters in 18 months, which but I don't know, for a lot of folks that's I think my master's degree program for dance was 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I'll never
Right.
do that again. I great really appreciated what it did for me, but that was 3 years of back and forth to Columbus
For sure.
at Ohio State. And so you're senior, like you're in it. You're copywriting. You've gotten all that done.
Uh-huh.
How did you land in the place where people in Cincinnati knew of you as a spoken word artist?
Yeah.
Because breaking into the art scene getting into business is one thing, but getting into the art scene is another.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did that happen? What was that first? What was the opportunities that led to that?
Yeah, so I spent a year out in at Foot Locker. I was out in Wisconsin writing for their website HQ. So great experience, great team out there. Got to write for Champs, Champ Sports, Nike, Reebok, right? So that was great. I really enjoyed that. And then, but my now wife was here back home in Cincinnati, so we're dating at the time, and came back home, proposed immediately. And so I was able to land my first job here in Cincinnati at Xavier as a senior creative content producer. And so I was at Xavier for 3 years. And when I was getting ready to make my transition, they were aware that I did poetry and that I did spoken word. And they're like, hey, it's National Poetry Month coming up. Can you do like a poem about Xavier that we can, and we'll just use it for the on-screen talent too. Can we do something for that to put out to our socials and out to web and on our YouTube and things like that, just to embody what it stands for? And I had actually pitched the concept. It never got picked up for my interview to get the role like 3 years prior. It was this concept about how X equals you, right? Treating the obviously X as Xavier is a huge thing, right? I was like, what if we treat X as a variable, right? And made X be a variable of all the things that a student could be, whether you're the kid playing hacky sack, whether you're the jock, whether you're the cheerleader, or you're the theater kid. X equals whoever you are. And it got me the job, but we never picked it up to actually utilize. Okay. And when they proposed that I do this, I'll call it an anthem, right? Because that's what I call them now. Do this anthem for Xavier. I was like, hey, what about that concept? And they were like, cool, let's do it. So I wrote that, and we recorded it, performed it, put it out, and I was, oh man, I really enjoyed that, right? That was really cool, and it was a way of doing poetry that wasn't live, but that allowed it to continue outside of me. And I was like, I really enjoyed that. And I had a friend at Crossroads Church here in Cincinnati who was doing something as well too, and they're like, hey, can you come and do some spoken word for this thing? Like, we want to kind of package this message that we're doing. It was related to Juneteenth as well. And I was like, yeah, like it was connected to the Mercy Me film, or not the Mercy Me, the Mercy, Just Mercy film that Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx had just done. They were focusing on the Equal Justice Initiative. And they were like, hey, can you come and do, it was like a 7-minute piece that they asked me to do, which was real long.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Good friend of mine there. And then that kind of laid the groundwork for like kind of building that momentum. And then that led into another opportunity. I had a friend of mine here in Cincinnati who we actually knew each other from when we were kids. Me, him, and his brother all kind of came up going to the same church. And he's working for the mayor's office now. Shout out to David Chimasuro. Great guy. He's a comedian and filmmaker out of Cincinnati here. And he's like, hey, I'm working at the mayor's office. I'm doing some work there, and we're getting ready for the State of the City address. And I want to do something a little bit different this year. Can you come in and bring some of your work for that? And I had just done a video for a nonprofit organization for Vernon Jackson, Gifted. It's a nonprofit here in Cincinnati. The guy's blowing up. He was just on a Jennifer Hudson show about a year ago for the work that he's doing, giving these free haircuts for special needs kids. And he would come out to my performances when I was performing at Nostalgia downtown. And I was like, hey man, I would love to do an anthem for your nonprofit. And he was like, hey man, we'll do it. We'll do it. And Hollywood talk, right? So I followed up with him and just sent him the demo of what I would do. And he was like, all right, when can we shoot? All right. So we were doing that. And then when I had done that, maybe like in July of that year, and then David had reached out later on. He's like, hey man, like we want to do something for the mayor's office. And they're doing spoken word poetry. We've been wanting to work together for a while. Let's make it happen. And I sent that over to him. I was like, hey, I could do something like this. What do you think? He's like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. I've got my own vision. Let's try and bring it together. And that's how I ended up doing basically a brand anthem for the mayor's State of the City address. That was the video that introduced him to come out for his speech. And that rolled into Film Cincinnati noticing that and saying, hey, we're getting ready to do a bid for Sundance. can we have you come in to do something similar for that, but catered to basically our pitch to Sundance to have them come to Cincinnati. That goes out, does very well. It gets us to the third and final round. We beat out 5 other cities, or I guess 3 other cities, because we made it to the top 3. And apparently we got a standing ovation from the board, right? Some folks got emotional, and that was a win for us, right? So this is kind of building up that momentum. Meanwhile, I'm still, I'm having churches from Minnesota, fly me out to do the same thing for their Easter programs, right?
Wow.
It's kind of building up momentum in different spaces. I'm doing workshops at universities and taking on different clientele. Was able to do a brand anthem for the Reds here in Cincinnati for their HBCU tribute day, right? So it's kind of just all connected and kind of picking up steam. And I also spent a year performing, kind of doing hosting a spoken word night at Nostalgia, very popular Black-owned, woman-owned venue here in Cincinnati, doing their poetry night. So I was performing live once a month downtown.
Wow. So you were getting your chops in, and that's
Yeah.
and that's the thing is that that's probably where Sierra from. It's that circuit, and I'm learning that's a well attended circuit. Spoken word is a big deal in Southwest Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like 2 people in the audience. It's like it's a packed audience.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people understand that. Like, it's like, oh, you need to not fall asleep on the spoken word scene in Southwest Ohio.
Absolutely. And that's why she's so amazing, man. I connected with her in 2016 when she did Last Poet Standing here in Cincinnati at the Aeronaut Center. And I signed up and was one of the poets in that competition. And so that's how she and I first connected.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it just, nostalgia, that's just something for our audience. I'm like, if you need to go, I'm like, you need to go to the nostalgia. You need to go. Just point blank. Don't ever, like I said, don't fall asleep on the spoken word. So it's like, it was like, and that's all, and that relationship with your friend is he still in the city mayor's office?
I don't think he's still with the mayor's office. I think he's his trajectory, right? I think he's from Zimbabwe initially. I know he's doing some things out there in Zimbabwe as well too. I mean, he's probably going to end up, West Coast somewhere. I haven't touched base with him in a little bit. His brother is still here local. His brother did sound on the video, talented musician.
Wow, it was a beautiful video.
It really was. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they did amazing work, great location. And he had some outsourced some friends as well who contributed, who don't work for the mayor's office, but had a good relationship with him. Super talented guys, man, and they really brought that together amazingly.
And what's really cool is, like, you also talked about it earlier in our conversation. You're right. You wrote a book, and it's an inspirational book. I was like, okay, all right, when do you have time to work?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I meant by the multi-hyphenate. Now it's like, okay, dance on top of it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about writing a book. What got you to go in that lane?
Oh man, so I've been coming up on 10 plus years. I started doing spoken word when I was 18, 17, right? Seriously, to a degree. So that's coming up on 15 years. And the entire time, right, I would have people, oh, where can I find this? I was like, oh, I'll be performing here. I'll be performing there. And I would always write in a way that was made to be consumed via spoken word, right? Delivered to you from my mouth to your heart, to your ears, right? And for a long time, I felt like that's how it had to be. I never saw myself as a poet in the way of, like, I write poems and let people read them. Because for me, so much of the connective storytelling piece was me conveying it to you the way I kind of come to do that. And, I guess living more life, right? Trials, tribulations, going through things, right? And I was like, man, like I really felt inspired to harness the fact that I've been able to speak into people's lives on stage, across screens, and I wanted to harness that into a written format to where I could continue to speak into people's lives without them ever having to hear me speak. And I'm a big person that's very passionate about perspective, the power of perspective, and how that's the effect that's had on my life, and how that's made me who I am, and has allowed me to get on the path to become who I want to be. I was the kid, right? I was held back in the 4th grade. Had to work with educational specialists, right? I navigated some different challenges Would running home telling my mom that I think I'm slow, I'm dumb. No, kids didn't want to work with me. Teachers don't say it, but they give you that look like, "Aw," right? So like there was this lack of confidence, right? Especially when I had to change schools and start back in the same grade. And I remember that there was this choice of how I could see it, right? And I remember when I got to that new school, coming from the school that I was at, great institution, just wasn't my learning style. It was more abstract, more freeform. And apparently I needed structure. And, they gave me a planner, there were desks, there were uniforms. And, I remember getting, it sounds crazy to say, but like my first A, like my first good grade, right? And I was like, wow, so you're telling me that I could apply myself and, learn about this concept of discipline and organization and preparation, and I could change the whole trajectory. So I have friends who were in my wedding, right? That was when I was 9 years old. I was held back. Friends who were in my wedding who don't even know that version of me prior, right?
Wow.
I was the kid, the same school that I was telling you about where I did that presentation with Langston Hughes.
Yeah.
I remember I had to do a presentation on a Native American. We all did, right? We were studying Native Americans, historical figures, and we had 3 months to do a project. I can't remember. And because of how I saw myself at the time, I remember waiting until the night of, because I'm like, well, there's no point. I don't have enough to offer. There's no point. I'll just come in. I remember I went to, Britannica or whatever it was called, printed off a picture of the guy that I had, put the date he was born, the date he died, and just came in with the picture. Mind you, we had 3 months. We were supposed to do a whole board, write an essay,
No, like they expected this.
Hey, oh my goodness. I literally glued sticks, some pictures on I remember green construction paper. Mind you, everybody else did the assignment, right?
Right.
When it's my turn, I'm like, all right, yeah, this is Tecumseh. He was born this year and died this year, and he was Native American. And when I tell you the look on their face, and then the look on the teacher's face, but I was comfortable with that because I genuinely felt that was the best I could do, because I never had access to tapping into what was there. I hadn't discovered, my gift for writing and in English yet and things like that. So when I go to this new school, it's a school that had like 84 kids, St. Paul Lutheran, it's no longer around. And I get introduced to this new style of like learning, and I'm now able to tap into, oh, okay, I got my first A. Oh, I'm on a roll. Oh, I'm getting stickers every single day. Oh, wow. Like, okay, what else can I do? What else can I do? So my perspective forever shifted. So now, as I'm getting older, I'm running into different challenges. I'm still not the best test taker. I went to St. X High School here in Cincinnati, and it's a difficult school to get into. And I remember I went through their preparatory program, Companion Scholars. And it's basically like a program mainly for minority students to have them come in and see if they can do work. Of course, I wanted to spend my summers, but my mom thought it was a great idea, right? So I was like, man, I'm not trying to go to the schools, all boys there. Why do I got to spend my summer like this? So I go through the program and I get a 95 average, come out valedictorian. They recommend me to come to St. X, but I bombed the exam.
Wow.
So I think of that analogy. What is it that an elephant trying to climb the tree with the monkeys, right? Like, I wasn't a good test taker, but they're like, how did you get a 95 average in the program? And we made you valedictorian. We got all these recommendations from the teacher, but you failed the exam. Fortunately, they had a program specifically for students like me. It was called the Modulus program, which means the more in Latin. And you could basically come in on your summers again and take a program similar to Companion Scholars to prove if you could, again, do the curriculum. And same thing, 95 average. You're like, okay, cool, we got it. You're just a bad test taker. Come in. So I go to St. X. And, I gained the tutelage there. I gained the sharpening. I mean, they have a way of not just instilling education, but like the principles of how a man should think, quite frankly, right? To make you a better person and a better human. And, I just kind of took that, and all these experiences I'm having really helped shape the power of perspective, which is why I think I ended up writing a book about it.
I'm Bonnie Miles, Membership Coordinator of CET. Thank you for listening to Rodney Veal's Inspired By. This podcast is a production of CET and ThinkTV, 2 local PBS stations. As PBS stations, the work we do online, on air, and in the community is supported by listeners like you. If you're enjoying the show and would like to support our work, please consider becoming a member at cetconnect.org or thinktv.org. Plus, when you sign up to donate at least $5 a month, you'll get access to special members-only streaming videos on the PBS app through Passport. Learn more at cetconnect.org or thinktv.org.
If you're enjoying this conversation, The Art Show, also hosted by Rodney Veal, is available to stream anytime from anywhere on YouTube or the PBS app.
We share that in common beyond wearing the same color shirt.
I was about to say.
Test taking. I mean, that was the first thing I asked the question when I went for my master's degree. Please tell me I don't have to take a test, because I would have bombed it. I literally would have bombed the test.
Yeah, for sure.
It was not going to. I mean, and so I think that there's something about that, because I think, especially with education, that we don't realize that there's not a one size fits all methodology, and I think that's to the detriment of especially young Black men. And people of color. It's like no, and it's not just. I don't think it's just native to us. I think it's universal. I think there's a sense of you cannot. It's like, I mean, come on. I was thinking, oh my God, like when you gave that presentation, this is a fully formed man. I mean, this is and his element. So what? And I love how you say about this perspective of like what would have. Most people would have said, "Oh, he bombed on a test, moving on." But they kept seeing, like, you kept showing up and being present with this ability to do more. Did you and like that confidence to say, you know what? No, there's something. It's here, but I just don't know how to get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I was very blessed and fortunate to have also seen that in other capacities. My father's an immigrant. My mother is a child of alcoholics, right? Grew up in not the best situation, right? And I grew up hearing stories of her journey, right? My mother's about to celebrate 35 years as an attorney, as a Black attorney. Like I said, her parents were alcoholics. Her father had a 3rd grade education. And I remember she told me a story about how at 13 years old, she's on the phone negotiating the rent with the landlord, right?
Wow.
I'm thinking about what I was doing at 13. I'm like, I don't even know what rent is, right? She's seen her parents get arrested in front of her, right? So she's seen some things, right? Walking over needles to get to their apartment. But when she got to their apartment, it was kept clean, right? Our parents were alcoholics, but they were also neat freaks, right? So there was this dynamic, and she knew she wanted to be a lawyer at 7. And
wow.
She saw Perry Mason for the first time. Boom, that was that. My father came to this country, but he talks about had $50 in his pockets. He used to be a smoker back then. He would eat cigarettes for dinner, had no money, but went on to be, an entrepreneur, become very successful in that capacity as well too. So I learned about this concept of grit, and I have a poem about grit in the book, about how it can really, how it basically, like, God gave us grit is the name of the title, and it's talking about how, basically that's something that's given to us to navigate the trials and the tribulations, right? Like, basically, there's a line where I say, like, life is not a free trial, but it does guarantee trials and tribulations, right? And that's something that I found to be true. I've seen it from those that came before me. I've seen it in my own life, and I really just developed this appreciation for what perspective can do. So you're telling me if I can change the way that I think, I can never be the same, right? Like I could literally elevate myself and evolve myself in a way that could transform my life in ways that I think about. And each one of these poems, there's a collection of 30 poems. Each one is its own body of work in its own right, with its own intentional message, tackling a different component about how perspective can have a transformation in your life.
Wow. That's the thing. It's like, I love how you said it about the trials and tribulations, because we all have them.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the thing that blocks you or literally stops you dead in your tracks and you can't get started again. Because I think a lot of people think of trials and tribulations as planet killers, for lack of a better term. It's like, okay, we're done. It is never going to happen. But they don't realize, no. Just look around it.
Yeah, yeah.
Look up over it. I'm like, and so they, not seeing it like, and I love this notion of put it in perspective.
Yeah.
And it's like and I've talked to some folks in this podcast and with the art show, been, we've been doing the broadcast for like a decade. This was, I tell people always affectionately, not on the bingo card of life. This was not the intention. I was very happy to stay in the lane of an educator, but then this opportunity presents itself. And it sounds like when opportunities presented themselves, you never looked at them as like, oh, I can't do that. Did you just, I mean, that takes you just went, okay. I mean, it just seems, but that seems to be the story from I've talked to people from all these different walks of life. They just saw the opportunities as so much greater than the obstacles of doing it somehow. It's almost like they skipped all the stuff in between, because there's always stuff in between to get to you get to that performance, and we don't talk about. There's a lot. there's a lot. So is that how you saw it?
I think that's just how I've kind of seen life. I think about this this concept of a grappling hook, right? And a lot of people are like, what's a grappling hook? But that's kind of been in my mind for like the last few years. I haven't done anything with that. I didn't put it in the book, but I've always felt like I've had this kind of grappling hook mentality. And what I mean by that is, like, if you see somebody use a grappling hook, right? If you're a fan of Batman or whatever, right? You shoot it off and it grabs onto something, right? If you're like on the ground, you can shoot it up and it like hooks onto something. And then once it's locked in, it pulls you up, right? So the way I've always thought about it is having that clarity and having that vision about your destination and where you want to go. That's the grappling hook locking on. You shot the grappling hook, locks on. Now, it might be some branches on the way. It might be some birds flying by. It might be some flags floating around, right? It might be some things along the way. You might bump yourself along the way. But if you hold on to that grapple hook, it's just going to keep going. Right? It's just gonna keep going. So if you hit that release button and it just pulls you up, you're gonna get up to where it latched onto, which was the vision where you saw yourself going. And that to me has kind of been, my mentality. And I think that's why anyone you've had on the show who's been fortunate enough to talk to you, I think that's why they usually end up where they do, because they realize, I'm gonna get some bumps along the way. But if I can hold steady on the vision, I think that's where a lot of people fall off. Like, I mean, think about it. If you're wearing a blindfold, you're trying to get even just across the room, you might bump over a chair, you're not going to know where you're going, right? But if you can decide clearly where you want to go in advance. I mean, think about, have you ever been behind a car at night and you can, you're not from here, like I'm up the street from home, I just want to get home, make a sandwich, relax, and this person's trying to find, I don't know, like a friend's house, and they're like slowing down. They keep hitting the brake lights. It's like, what are they? Why are they keep slowing down? Why are they? What is? Oh, you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're going, right?
Right.
Yeah. You know where I live? I live around the corner, 2 blocks up. All I got to do is I can get home and not even think about it, right? But you don't know where you're going, and it's dark out. You're looking for the address. Is this?
Is this GPS right? I mean, you're constantly double checking, triple checking, slowing down.
Stopping,
stop.
And now here's the thing, though. Because of that, they could even cause an accident. They can cause a pileup, right? Because they haven't actually, like, not knowing where you're going. Right, is to a degree, right? In that case, it's a little bit dangerous. Like, man, okay, now I'm backed up because I don't know where I'm going. I got all these ideas, I got all these ambitions. Now I'm frustrated, right? I see that pile up as frustration. Like, well, I was supposed to have been at my destination 2 hours ago, but because I don't actually know where I'm going. I never got the address. I just got in the car. Now I'm frustrated because I'm not getting anywhere, right? And now I'm frustrated because cars are ramming into me and this, that, and the third. And I think that's why clarity and vision, and I talk about vision in the book as well, too. It's one of my favorite pieces. I think that's why that's so important for anyone to actually get anywhere that they're trying to go.
Oh, man. These words of wisdom, it's lived. It's like it's embodied. I mean, you embody. I love that grappling hook and the driving analogy, because that's so real. That is an absolute real thing. And a lot of people don't recognize that someone stopping and starting could be the people in your own life. It's not that they're not strangers. They're sometimes it's like, wow, I'm with some folks who are stopping and starting. I need to not be with some folks who stop and start. It's a different, so there's this, and that's a whole thing. I mean, I find that to be something that is not always talked about.
Yeah.
But I noticed in these conversations, especially this conversation with you, it's like that everybody's walking around with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm talking to like choreographers, filmmakers, costume designers, poets, Broadway producer. I mean, it's the spectrum. At a certain point, a mosaic artist. I'm like an artist who works in metal. I was like, what? I mean, it's this notion of they have they understand that perspective that you cannot, you got to know where you're going.
Yeah.
It's not about and you're going to pick up the things along the way and encounter the things, but you know where you're going. They all knew where they were going.
Yeah. No, yeah. Right.
And so now that you're like, you know where you're going, you're here, you're at this moment. I mean, the fact that the executive director of the Ohio Arts Council has to stop dinner to talk about you.
Yeah.
And her face lit up. I mean, that was the thing. That's when you make people light up. You make them say like that's the energy you want in the space.
Yeah.
I mean, what's next for you as far as like, do you want to continue to kind of keep growing this out where it becomes something? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I probably a couple years or within the last year or so, I kind of decided to create a mantle under, like you said, the hyphen that all the hyphens could fit under, right? To a degree, right. Or at least the ones that I'm leaning into most consistently. So I, kind of crafted the mantle Laurent Che Speaks, right? And that's kind of been, if you had a chance to look at my website and things like that. And I felt like that embodied, a lot of what I'm doing, not just in the spoken word component, right? Because obviously spoken word performance, but then there's the inspirational speaking component, right? I am very passionate about inspiring people in a way that I was fortunate to be inspired, because I run into people all the time. They're like, oh man, if you were just aware of the potential you have, you could have a major impact in your own life that you're not even seeing right now. So I kind of developed this passion, having been in a position before where it's like I was fortunate to tap into something that for so long I wasn't able to see. Now I just want that for everybody, right? So for me, when I have a chance to perform, when I have a chance to give an inspirational talk, or when I have a chance to write a book, I wanted to leave an impact in somebody's life that, like I said, leads to transformation in a way that they didn't even think was possible. And that's what's coming out, from what you're saying when you see me perform, is that passion and that empathy from having been in the positions in my life where I'm like, man, I wish somebody would have saw that in me, and I'm glad certain people did. Right. And now I feel like I almost have to pay it forward. And, you never know what anybody's going through, and everybody, always needs some inspiration and some uplifting. And, I think I want to put that in my work so that it becomes universal. So that anytime somebody picks up my book, I would love for it to get to the point where it's translated in different languages. Hopefully it still makes sense. But like, I would love for it to be universal to where it's like, oh my gosh, like he's talking to me. There's a piece in the poem called Imposter, right? Where it's talking about imposter syndrome. I know CEOs and C-suite professionals that have shared, transparently about what it's like to navigate imposter syndrome, right? And you're talking to somebody who, on paper, basically crafted this new identity that I'm walking in. But what people don't realize, I'm still that same kid, right? I'm still that same guy. I'm still that same chubby kid who was held back, buck teeth, you know what I mean? Whose crush said no thank you, and whose teacher said poor thing, and who, group project, classmates, were, rolling their eyes when he got assigned to work with them, right? Like, I'm still that guy in my mind, right? So like what that does, grounded in a way to where gratitude is what I kind of inherently lead with, right? So now it's like, anytime something comes along, I'm grateful in a way to where, okay, well now I like I said, I have to pay that forward, right? And there's a piece about grateful called Insightful Illumination, because it creates a different way of seeing things. I talk about it as mood lighting for your mind, right? How you can see certain things a certain way when you have gratitude. And gratitude for me has been transformational in my life. And, down from, how I navigated as a husband, have a son who will be one next month, right? As a father, as an uncle, right? As a brother, as a friend, and so these insights, what a lot of people don't realize that I hope they have by now, is that I'm talking to myself in a lot of these pieces. We're not just dealing with perspective in the way of how to achieve success and overcome setbacks. There's components of emotional intelligence, because perspective can be applied to literally anything. There's a piece in there called Misery's Nemesis, right? Where I'm basically talking about, we've all come across miserable people, right? People that, like, man, why are they being so mean to me? Why? I haven't done anything to you. What is it? Why? And so for me, instead of becoming furious, I was like, okay, what if I became curious instead of, right? Oh, okay. All right, cool. So what if you were, and there's a line in the poem, what if you were, are you emotionally bleeding internally and I can't even see the wound? Right? So you're out here, you're acting a certain way toward me, but you're in pain, right? And if we saw people like that, it would shift our perspective to where now, my wife talks about like how, I don't know, during traffic, I don't really get, somebody cuts me off or, whatever, somebody doesn't let me over when they have plenty enough time. They decide to turn into a NASCAR racer and speed up when they could have let me over so I don't miss my exit, right? I don't get as worked up about that because I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, he must be going through it. That must be tough. Man, like, I haven't done anything to you. Like, if you weren't feeling a certain amount of misery, but that's why I entitled the piece Misery's Nemesis, because empathy, right, which I kind of labeled as the nemesis of misery, that allows you to not only have a different reaction to the misery to avoid them from getting company, right, but it allows you to actually counteract, and I kind of frame empathy as the cure to misery or an antidote. And these are perspectives in relationally that I've gained, right? So a lot of people hear a book like Iron Insights, right? And they think, oh, okay, cool. Let me pick this up, and it's going to be, insights on how I can go out here and conquer the world and this, that, and the third. And yeah, there's some of that in there, right? But I also wanted it to be a book for perspective in the sense of how you can relate to people, how you can become a better spouse, a better friend, how you could become better to yourself, and how you could honestly be a better coworker, a better boss, and I feel like Iron Insights, the reason I titled it that, a lot of people, where's Iron Insights? And I realized, I was like, man, the way we see the world is like, perspective is a way of fortifying our minds, right? Like if I get knocked down, that's going to hurt. But if I have the right perspective, I'm protected from the blow, right? Okay, I can. So now iron is like, and even if you look at the cover of the book, and I actually can share it with you, you'll see that I kind of have, this kind of like android kind of metal-like figure around the head, but then the eyes kind of have this kind of iron metal-like structure to them, because if you can see with Iron Insights, your vision is protected, and that actually affects how you're able to move and how you're able to conduct yourself. So that's Iron Insights, on top of the fact that I just thought it kind of rolled off the tongue, kind of sounded cool.
It's all connected. It's all in its thing. So, so Lauren, what would be, and you've covered a lot of things, and this has been fantastic. Is there one thing that you could share, especially for parents? Because I think a lot of people don't know, for parents of potential multi-hyphenates. What would be your advice to them?
Oh man, give them room. I'd say give them room, but give them a spot, right? I think about the first thing that comes to mind when you said that is like a gymnast doing a backflip or learning to do a backflip. And what's the coach doing? They're not, cool, let me flip you. Like they're like, okay, all right, my hand is here so that you don't fall on your neck as you're trying to figure out how to make it all the way around. You can't really see where your feet are going when you're in the air trying to flip, right? You have to build the muscle memory. So I'm going to spot you while you're in rotation, while you're in transition. And I'm going to be there for you to provide that support. And I was very fortunate, my like I said, my father is a traditional African man, right? So when he had a son who was an artist, he's like, what is what?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Moving on, right? So I remember for a year, the first spoken word, performance my dad came to was in 2015. Mind you, I've been performing for like 4 years, right? And I found out years later because my mom didn't want to let me know. She's on the phone with him. He's calling her like, what is he doing out there with this dancing and this poetry stuff? Like, it was cute when he would dance as a kid at all the African parties and everything like that. And what's this poetry thing? Like he's supposed to be focusing on school. Now, the reason my dad didn't say anything to me is because I maintained over a 3.0. He couldn't say anything to me legally.
Right? Legally, you were delivered on the school part, right?
I delivered, right? I was like, cool. Like, there's nothing you can say to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, he just couldn't understand, right? Because my dad, and when you're coming from, a different country, you're one dimensional. You talk about multi-hyphenate. You have to, what's the goal? Go to school, get a degree, and
get a job.
Get a job. You know what I mean? That's the goal, right? He was an accountant by trade. Like, everything I'm doing is accounting or business focused. Like, so in his mind, I was trying to make it out in Hollywood, right? Which I was open to, right? If the things, like, hey, whatever. And I'm not going to deny a certain path. I've done some acting and some extra background stuff here and there. But that wasn't my goal, right? I was expressing myself and kind of figuring out, where I've landed, right? I call myself an architect of brand anthems right now in the brand storytelling, right? That's kind of my niche that I've crafted outside of my career as a senior copywriter and creative director. But like, it took some time to cultivate that. And he came to me, he apologized. He was like, hey man, look, I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it, right? When I tell him about the things that I'm now, he's the one passing everything. Oh, look at my son's video, look at this book, look at this. Like, he's the number one, because when he came out 10 years ago to that event, he was like, oh, this is okay, wait. And then when my professor came up, are you his dad? Oh, let me tell you, I've been working with him, this, that, and the third. So there was this realization and epiphany of like, oh man. But to his credit, he at least gave me the space, because he didn't know what to say, because he didn't understand it. He's like, okay, well, he's doing all right in school. He's still getting his education. So I can't say anything. He's
not. It's not like he's doing god awful things. Because there's yeah. So, oh my God, I love that.
But keep that spot for him.
Keep the space for him. So I'm so glad we made this space and the time to have this conversation, because this inspired me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm smiling. I'm just like, okay,
you're doing God's work, man. I listen to a lot of your interviews, and inspired by is a real thing. You're inspiring the world, man. So I knew I had to be a part of it when you reached out. So I'm honored that you felt I could be a good addition to something amazing that you built.
Absolutely, I sensed it. I felt it. I was your dad, and that audience go, oh, I get it. I still get it. So thank you for being on the show, man.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.